I'd like to call the September 22nd regular City Council meeting for the Des Moines City Council to order. And could we have Councilmember Bangs please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Councilmember Musser is absent tonight. Is there a motion to excuse?
So moved. Second.
The motion was made by Councilmember Nutting, seconded by Councilmember Back. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Is there any correspondence?
No, there's not.
Thank you. At this time, we move to comments from the public. Comments will be made from the podium. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, 5 minutes for organizations. The first person we have signed up to speak is Mr. Bill Linscott.
Bill Linscott, I live at 22335 6th Avenue South. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My topic tonight deals with the implementation of paid parking at the Marina and Beach Park. Specifically, the concern is over expected impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. We expect the traffic pattern to change as we close Dock Street. We expect some to still look for free parking up into the neighborhood rather than going down into the Marina parking lot. So those changes are of concern to the neighborhood, and the surrounding neighborhood probably has some of those issues today on the big events that occur, but it's going to be different in the future. We think we need a mitigation plan, and today some of those concerns deal with kind of the pedestrian safety, and there is probably some marginal parking issues that the residents deal with in the neighborhood already. The mitigation plan has occasionally been mentioned at some of the committee meetings and once in a while maybe mentioned in the council, but we're kind of concerned that it's getting the attention and the urgency that it's need to coincide with implementation of the plan, the paid parking plan itself. We would, let's see, I want to say we have a handout tonight that actually has some of my remarks on it to kind of provide an introduction to it. But in the handout, it's got some suggestions and recommendations that have come from the neighborhood as we participated in some of the meetings with the Marina. In fact, I'd like to thank Joe for the Marina meetings he's had monthly. Turnout's been great. We've had 40 to 50 people each time. And so he's covering kind of the approach for paid parking, answering questions, and reporting on the progress we're making. From the neighborhood perspective, if you look at what the recommendations that are attached to those introductory remarks, they deal with lower speed limits. And right now, the speed limits down there are inconsistent. You find on one side of the street it might be 10 miles an hour, on the other side it's 20. On one side it's 15, the other side it's 20. You got 25, and up the street you have 15. So one thing we'd like to do is just get consistency and kind of bring the speeds down to the lowest speed limit that has been assigned to that area in the street. Safety for pedestrians, we want a walkable environment around there. We could use some crosswalks. Assured access and parking for the residents. Residents need alleyways to be clear. The parking, like I said, is kind of marginally down there already for the residents. We'd like to see some of the parking signs that we find around the community college, you know, where we've worried about the students parking into the community, and we've, on both sides, north and south of the college, we have limited parking, you know, residents only. We think on 6th Avenue in particular, that would be advisable to do. That causes the revenue to stay down in the marina where it ought to be in the first place. Also, increased signage. You know, I think getting signs out there so the people coming into it know what they're about ready to enter, a controlled parking area. If they don't understand that on the south entry at 6th Avenue and 227th, they've got to go in through the process and come out. Signage needs to tell them that they're entering it there, and if they're going to abort, they got to go up 6th Avenue. So with that, you find changes in the parking area.
Mr. Linscott, I'm giving you a little leeway because of your representation of the Des Moines Marina Association,
Okay.
because you are over your 3 minutes, so we'll give you a little leeway here.
All right, I'll go fast here. We do believe that all of the things in here are doable, and we've given a lot of thought to them. The people have given a great deal of thought to them. We've spent time together driving around the neighborhood, walking around to visualize where things need to be kind of attended to. We think that in the end, it's going to be best for the marina, it'll be best for the community and the city as a whole if we get these mitigation actions taken together with the overall plan. You know, the success in getting a community informed and then engaged in a timely manner is a key element that the city needs to have. At the same time, the city staff and the engagement response is also an element of the success. Joe's done a great job, set a high standard for active engagement so far. We're looking forward to working together with the people that are on the staff dealing with traffic and the streets. And in fact, we would love to have that group join the Marina Tag-Up meetings that we have monthly and report on a plan as a whole so that we get both the implementation of the parking and the mitigation of the surrounding neighborhood pulled together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I don't have a name on the next one. It's the Mount Rainier High School ASB. So I would ask that when you come to the podium that you introduce yourself, and we'll start the clock after introductions because I think you're going to have a few.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Rock. I'm super excited to be here tonight. I am the first two-time ASB president at Mount Rainier High School, and with a new year comes a new ASB. So we wanted to introduce you to our new ASB this year. We also have a new athletic director, ASB advisor, leadership teacher that we brought here to introduce. And as you may know, we have a new principal at Mount Rainier High School. She was unable to come tonight, but at our next meeting, hopefully she'll be able to come and introduce herself.
All right, my name is Ruby Langanal. I am the ASB Vice President, and this will be my second year in ASB.
My name is Austin McLaughlin, and this will be my first year in ASB, and I'm the ASB Treasurer.
My name is Kay Jenkins, and I'm the ASB Secretary, and this is my first year in ASB.
My name is Janae James, and I'm the new Activities and Athletic Director at Mount Rainier, so I'm definitely excited to become a part of Des Moines community and Highline School District representing Mount Rainier. On behalf of our wonderful leadership team, we would like to invite you to our upcoming homecoming game, and although it is extremely late notice, I hope that you're all able to attend. So homecoming will be held tomorrow at 7 p.m. At Highline Stadium, and our group's been working really hard to get this together. We decided to choose a date that was a little earlier in the year, contrary to what we've done in the past, but we thought it was ideal for our group. And right now our football team is 3-0 and they're doing amazing. So hopefully we will see you all out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think from the council's perspective, the Mount Rainier ASB recently has kept us very well involved, and I just want to thank the students and their leaders for making sure that we are involved. It's really appreciated. I don't have anybody else signed up to speak. Is there anyone who didn't sign up who wishes to speak? Seeing no one come forward, I will move forward to board and committee reports and council member comments, starting with Mayor Pro Tem Pennington.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming and to the student body. I attended with interim city manager Matthias and Mayor Pina the North Hill Community Club, where we talked about the state of the city and answered a few questions, and that was a great group to go and visit, and we look forward to coming back there. We also had a community advisory committee meeting. I think there was a lot of energy at the end of that meeting, and it was actually a really refreshing meeting to attend, so I really appreciate that and the folks that showed up there. I attended the Historical Society meeting last week, and they were highlighting a family-owned business that was B&E Meats, and they've been in the city, and they've been a family-owned business for over 50 years, which I think is really remarkable. They're into the second generation, third generation working there, and they talked about their roots and how they expanded and where they are today, and it was really cool. And and I got thinking, there's off the top of my head, I think I can think of two other businesses, and there may be more, but there's, I think, two other family businesses that have been here 50 plus years, and that would be Elsie's Service Station, and I think they're at the 55-year mark. They actually started at 223rd Marine View Drive, I think is the Flying A or one of those. And then the other one is Des Moines Drug, and I think they've been here over 50 years. So I think, we should invite, I really like it if we could invite these businesses, and we can maybe identify some more. But that 50-year mark is big. That's a big deal. That's a long time to be in a community, and they've all given back to the community, and kind of made it who we are to a certain degree. And so I'd like for us to recognize them, and I think either we do that through a proclamation or something, maybe bring them in and thank them for being here. And so I don't know if that needs to be in the form of a motion.
Well, I don't know. I think it's an excellent idea. We've been trying to recognize success and achievement throughout the city, and I think that's an area that we haven't yet had a chance to get to. So I think I can't tell you, I know the businesses you've named off have been here a long time. I can't tell you how long they've been, and I don't know if the city can either. So is there a way that we can get that information?
If we can find out maybe through some of our records and maybe through the Historical Society, they've got some thoughts too of some businesses that's been around. But I'd be glad to take that on and work with staff on putting something together.
Okay, Councilmember Kaplan and then Councilmember Back.
The only thing I was going to say is on my list to bring up tonight is the Spirit of Des Moines Awards, and it would seem fitting that those organizations fit in with that in terms of recognition. So maybe through that process is the best way to go about identifying it.
Could I have to discuss that with you further to know how that framework is and how we bring that in, but I'm open to that.
I like Vic's idea. I'm wondering, Vic, you're thinking primarily for-profit businesses, but if we could include the nonprofits like Wesley and Judson Park, because they've been here so long and they're part of the community, and they kind of make us who we are as well, but just a thought.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Councilmember Banks?
I agree. I think that's a great idea. I would like to also know, just in general, how long most of the businesses have been here in Des Moines, because we probably have some that have been here maybe not 50 years, but 5, 10, or 20. And I think that would be good information to have. I'm not saying that we would exclude them, but we should thank everyone that's got a business here in Des Moines. But the 50-year is a heck of a mark.
Pretty big milestone.
It's a big milestone.
Well, I think to Councilmember Kaplan's suggestion, this is the type of thing that if we can get the information from staff, we can somehow see how we can fold that into the Spirit of Des Moines. Or does that make sense? Well, I'm seeing everybody nod. I think we have a consensus. So, okay. So I don't think we have to do anything else with that.
And one last thing is the Historical Society, I'd like to thank them for the work they've done. If you don't know, They're doing a fundraiser. They're trying to raise $1,000 by the end of the month so they can get some matching funds to get some new display cases. Rick, I guess you're here as part of the Historical Society, I guess, and so thank you, and pass that along. You guys are doing great work. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes, on last Thursday, attended the Master Builder Association of King and Snohomish County's 2016 Housing Summit that was held at Maidenbauer Center. And they put this on every year for people within the industry as well as for elected officials. And excellent presentations. The theme this year was on housing affordability. And they discussed everything from the new housing start shortage, buildable land inventory methodology, in terms of changing that so you get a more accurate picture of how much land actually is available for construction. Home ownership challenges for families from a lender's perspective, looking at the human side of housing affordability crisis in terms of people being displaced, and steps that can be taken for affordable housing to meet the growing population. They're expecting another 1 million people to move to this area in the next, I think it's 10 or 12 years. So that's a lot. They have a policy position on 3 particular issues on increasing the supply of affordable workforce housing, focusing policy action on buildable land supply, and restoring and protecting vested development rights. More than happy to share the information with you that came from this. This year, there have been 2,700 single-family home permits in King County year to date. And I know that we have a chunk of those because we had a number of developments that had been approved a while ago. So I'm curious what our percentage of those single-family permits, or whether that's just the unincorporated area. So if staff could find out how many single-family home permits have been issued for the city this year, that would be helpful. The other thing that I took note of was that the median family income in King County is $80,000. That's the median, which means there's a lot of people below, a lot of people above. So that stood out. And the need for people to get involved in the construction trades. There is a definite lack of people to be able to do the work, to be able to build housing, but not only that, but on the commercial side of things. I know commercial developers are struggling, and there are people who are looking for contractors and trying to come up with labor wherever they can, and it's becoming a growing problem.
We're actually experiencing that in our downtown corridor with some of the projects there.
Last Saturday was the Poverty Bay 8 Guards Gala put on by the Des Moines Arts Commission and the Legacy Foundation. Very nice event. I think attendance was up this year. Curious to hear what, oh, you don't have the numbers? Okay, so, but I think they must have done better this year than they did last year, based just strictly on attendance alone. I want to thank the hard work that goes into putting that event on and supporting the arts here in Des Moines, which fundraising like that goes to pay for the concerts in the park that are free to the public to come down to during the summertime, as well as some of the other events that get put on by the Arts Commission. On Tuesday, I attended the South County Area Transportation Board meeting. The focus of the conversation there was updates on Puget Sound Regional Council and the Orca Pass. They've been taking data from the Orca passes that you use for buses and for Sounder and for the ferries and for everything else, and they've used that data, that grossed up data, analyzed it to be able to figure out where people are from, where they're going, when they're riding, how far they're going, whether they're having to make a transfer or not. And it's very enlightening. asked for information specific to Des Moines so that we can get some information, though there's a question as to who owns the data. We heard a briefing from the Southeast King County Transportation Benefit District. Black Diamond, Enumclaw, Covington, and Maple Valley are essentially outside the Sound Transit boundaries, so they get very little service from them. They get very little service from Metro, and they have some major transportation projects. So what they are contemplating doing is forming a transportation benefit district, which would include portion of Southeast King County, unincorporated King County, plus those 4 cities. All 4 of those cities already have a transportation benefit district like we do, but they're essentially forming a sub-regional district, or attempting to try and raise money with an additional $20 to be able to make improvements on Highway 169 and a couple of other highways that feed into their area. It's the first time I've heard of this being done, other than on a citywide basis. And I guess I'd like to know if it'd be possible, I'm not sure whether or not, depending upon what our real obligation is relative to State Route 509, because there's, in that nearly $1 billion project, $800 million to $1 billion project, there is a $30 million local match that's part of that. And I don't think the state nor the cities that are immediately impacted by us, SeaTac, Burien, have figured out exactly how that would ever be, and the port, how that would ever actually be met. So I'd be interested in finding out whether or not a TBD could be formed as a methodology to meet whatever our obligation is, if we're actually having to put the $30 million into the pot. And the last piece on the skateboard is that they are talking about this Sound Transit Angle Lake Station opening this Saturday at 9:30. On yesterday, council members Bangs and the other B, I'm sorry, attended open house on low-impact development. State legislature passed legislation requiring low-impact development be implemented by local jurisdictions with those provisions adopted by the end of this year. Staff, the consultant parametrics, someone from King County, and 2 members of the public, including Mr. Johnson, and the 3 of us actually got to see a presentation and find out a bit about what's coming our way. It's a very complicated issue because of the critical areas we have, steep slopes, because of the clay that we've got down quite a ways. It begs a lot of questions as to what that's going to look like, which methodologies we're going to allow or not allow or require as part of the low impact development regulations that we wind up adopting. So we're going to have to take a really close look at that because there's both long-term, short-term implications, responsibility for who maintains these facilities, and the costs involved, plus disposal of, if you have to dig up soil that's been contaminated, where you dispose of it and all that. So
Dave, just to piggyback off that and make sure everyone knows, it's essentially around water quality management and that commercial as well as private.
And it's a policy that we're going to have to adopt by the end of the year, according to Department of Ecology.
This afternoon, evening, Councilmember Bangs and I went to the Pacific Middle School barbecue, which is the open house for the parents of the students there since the start of school. Had an opportunity to basically say hello to some of the teachers and introduce ourselves to and welcome the parents and thank them for coming to, on behalf of their kids to support them. So, yeah, it was a nice event. The cities of SeaTac and Burien have been struggling with various issues related to the airport. The most common one has been the proposal to cut 2,800 trees. I know we're going to be hearing more about that. But both of those cities have been looking at what the impacts are going to be within their jurisdictions. I think all but 38 trees are in Des Moines. I think the rest are within those other two jurisdictions. And so they're struggling with the brunt of that. And the city of SeaTac actually has challenged the SEPA determination by the port for the first approximately 1,100 or 1,200 trees that would be cut on the port's property that they own within the region. City of Burien has a few additional issues related to SeaTac. Laura Lake, which is a highly polluted lake at the north end, northwest corner off of the property there. The port is looking to fill in, I believe, as part of their master plan. It has been a hazardous site for a long time, so trying to reclaim the lake would be an expensive proposition. In fact, I think there are actually drums of stuff still in the bottom of that with dioxins and other things in it. So it's not clear exactly what's going to happen there. Burien would like to see the lake restored. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but that issue is bubbling. And then because of safety concerns, the FAA has, instead of spreading out the turboprop flights out of the airport, they've been coming through a much narrower corridor, so certain neighborhoods in Burien have been adversely impacted by those flights turning to the west. SeaTac has a similar thing. These are all the northbound flights. On the southbound flights, a portion of Pacific Ridge is impacted, but most of it is SeaTac when they're turning to the east. When they turn to the west, it's a portion of North Hill and Normandy Park. So those are directly related to the distance between one plane ahead of another plane behind the jets. The prop wash or the jet wash creates problems for the turboprop planes, and that's why the FAA has been doing what they're doing. But wanted you to be aware of those issues. And then the last has been an issue, it's been an ongoing issue relative to health and exposure to noise and pollutants from aircraft. One of the discussion items that I had with a council member from SeaTac, council member from Burien, after the skateboard meeting was the possibility of asking our legislators to fund a follow-up study to the HOK study that was done 20 years ago on the impacts on the surrounding community. That took into account financial impacts and other things related to the surrounding communities. But the health aspect, the health impacts were part of that study, and we would like to see, I think we'd like to see a follow-on study done for that. That way it would be independent of the FAA or the port and would provide a similar basis on which to be able to do an evaluation. So, and then the last item is, as I mentioned before, the Spirit of Des Moines Awards. Based on the outline that we have in our council rules, a committee is put together with the mayor and another council member and somewhere between 5 and 9 community members. They get together, they take a look at candidates for both an annual award, lifetime awards, and then there's organizational awards as well. It could be nonprofit or for-profit for that matter. I don't think there's any restriction on that. And then the awards are typically given out in November. So my recommendation is to get the committee up and running. I think it's been a couple of years actually since we pursued it, and I think timing-wise makes sense.
I would agree. I think it makes sense. as our former mayor, you are very well acquainted with this. I haven't had the chance to work through this. And so I am suggesting that Councilmember Kaplan, you join me and be the other member from the dais, and we will work with the council and get the committee together and move forward with the spirit of Des Moines Wards, giving consideration also to what Mayor Pro Tem Pennington and the council agreed to with the businesses of service, substantial service in the community. So let's meet after and talk about next steps.
Sounds good. That's it.
Councilmember Back.
Thanks, Dave. That was a great report, man. I want to say thanks to Bill Linscott for his input tonight, and especially this written thing that you gave. It's very well thought out, very well structured, so I realize you got a limited time to speak, but the way you wrote this out was really good information, so thanks for your work on that. Board and committee reports. Thursday, well, first of all, I went to the, last Wednesday, I went to the Sound City Association PIC meeting, Public Issues Committee meeting. Nothing much to report on that. Thursday, we had the Environment Committee meeting. We discussed the surface water management budget for next year. Last Saturday, I attended a SCORE banquet that they did. It's an annual employee recognition and awards banquet that they do for all the employees and their families. A number of awards were handed out, but it was a great event. And Mayor Dennis Law of the city of Renton barbecued filet mignon, so that was the best part. And then yesterday morning, up at the Bellevue Red Lion, I was invited to a special breakfast, informative breakfast put on by the Center for Justice for Children and Youth. This is a partnership with a group called Youth Care, and it's funded by the state's Children's Justice Interdisciplinary Task Force to develop a model protocol for providing victim-centered response to commercially sexually exploited children. And there is an issue with sex trafficking of our kids that I'm passionate about, so I'm glad this awareness is reaching out to the community. They're basically making a call to action, asking more people to be involved. And the biggest thing they're just trying to do is inform our community of the red flags that we can look for in youth that could be exploited, and we may not know it, but if you see a young person with extraordinary amount of money or suddenly dressing nice and that's beyond their budget, there's certain triggers and red flags that you could look for. But it was informative breakfast. Obviously, it was heavy information to get first thing in the morning at 7 o'clock, but I just appreciate the work that they're doing. So, and that's it. Last thing, I just want to say thanks to the community, because I got a lot of kind notes for my 56th birthday the other day, and I wasn't expecting that. So it was one thing to be a new council member and get unpleasant things said to me from people I don't know, but it was kind of cool to get birthday cards from people that I don't know either in the community. So thanks for that, and that's all I got.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm 56, by the way. And you can write your check out to Rob Beck. Thanks.
Councilmember Bangs.
I actually have no committee report, but I have a couple questions. One, is it possible to get this information on sexual exploitation on our website for distribution, or at least ability for others to log in to take a look, since
That's great.
there really isn't a way for us to get this out?
As long as we have permission to use the information, yes.
Okay, so,
I'll give this to the city clerk.
okay, that would be great. Thanks, Dave, for giving my part of the report. Appreciate that. It's very helpful. I would say that the last day of the market is this Saturday, so there won't be a chili cook-off, but last year was a lesson learned, so we won't do it this year. And the weather was bad, so they really couldn't do much last year. And Rob's birthday and our interim city manager's birthday also was this week. So happy birthday, guys. I don't know how old you are, don't want to know, but happy birthday.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting, please.
I wanted to, first of all, congratulate Sophie for her second term ever at Mount Rainier as the president. Nice work. So, and thanks for being a part of the community and coming forth to council and giving us an update. That's really great of you to bring the rest of the ASB in here as well. So congratulations. Second, in Councilmember Musser's absence, I chaired the municipal Municipal Facilities Committee this evening. The only item on the agenda was the update on the DNR lease under the breakwater. So as many people might know, we leased the land under the breakwater, and we pay about $110,000 a year. That lease started out at about $6,000, and by the time the original lease was up, we were paying about $15,000. They did reconfigured the lease, and now we're at $110,000 and possibly up to $120,000 at the end of that lease agreement. So this is their fourth go around trying to get the DNR to not have us pay that lease. Representative Tina Orwell and Representative Dave Hayes from the 10th District in Oak Harbor, City of Des Moines is getting together and trying to do this legislatively to get them to allow us to keep the $110,000 that would go for redevelopment costs, maybe redoing the breakwater on the North Bulkhead, and we're trying to get the support from the Port of Seattle. And if we can get that support, we're not pretty confident, but having a big player like that to support us, we might be on the winning end this time after 4 times. So look forward to hearing more about that. And Zenith Holland Gardens has been in business for 110 years almost, so there you go. Concludes my remarks.
I knew there were other businesses we weren't aware of just yet, so it's worth it to take the time. I've got a few things. We've already covered the Spirit of Des Moines, so there will be a follow-up discussion on that. I'm happy to report that the Redondo Boardwalk will be opening officially in October. They're looking for a Saturday to put the ribbon cutting together. Chances are people will walk on it before the official opening, but we're very close, and I'm glad to be able to say that we are coming to the finish line on that. Speaking of coming to the finish line, there was some mention of it, but September 24th, which is this weekend from 11 to 2, the SeaTac station at 200th will be celebrating the opening of that extension of the Link Light Rail. So it's the invitation is to come celebrate the opening of the Angle Lake Station. Enjoy entertainment, music, refreshments, free raffle tickets. I don't even know how they're going to get all that on the platform. That's quite a bit, but it's exciting to have, because now we have better connectivity and better modes of transportation for our citizens down here. On the 13th, I had the opportunity to, with our interim city manager and Mayor Pro Tem Pennington, attend the North Hill Community Club. And we did what we refer to as a State of the City. The process is generally to come in and talk about a number of things happening in the city, and then open it up to the room to get answers to various questions that they have. It was well attended. It was a great night, very successful. Conversation was very engaging. I think we were up for about an hour and a half. And we have one of our members of the Citizens Advisory Committee here, and he was there, and definitely, active participant, and we appreciate that. So thank you, Matt. On the 15th, we repeated the format for the Citizens Advisory Committee. Again, these folks are a conduit for conversation within our communities, and we want to make sure that everybody has the same understanding and information around what's going on within the city of Des Moines. And again, great group, great dialogue, and happy to provide that. And again, at that meeting, we had numerous staff members, but we had Danielle Mason from our finance director, and we had our city clerk Bonnie making sure that we were all staying on the rails. We had our interim city attorney Tim, again, making sure that any questions that needed to be answered or addressed in a legal fashion was there. Interim city manager Michael Mathias was there. And then we also had from the council, we had Mayor Pro Tem Pennington and Councilmember Bangs. So, and that's not to mention the 19 or 22 people that were in the room from the Citizens Advisory Committee. So again, it's working out very well. We have another meeting with them October 6th, and at that point, we will start preparation for the City Council retreat coming later this fall, getting input from the various committee members and neighborhoods. So I think we're a little later in getting that information than I hoped we would be, but with the other activities that have been going on between the budget, city manager hiring, and so forth, they've been very helpful. But getting to this, we just had to make sure we could do it before the council retreat this fall. I also had the pleasure of attending one of Joe's marina parking meetings, and Joe, you're doing an excellent job. I want to thank the Linscotts for being there, and also hearing what people are saying. And Mr. Linscott is part of the Citizens Advisory, representing folks in the Marina Association. And as you can see, he's one of the great things about what's happening down with our folks associated with the marina is they're not only looking at what the challenges are, but they're coming back with what they hope to be workable solutions. And so I don't know if we got one of these over to you, Brandon, but I think your name's on every one of these items. So look forward to talking to you about that. I can see you're excited as well. Let's see. And then on the 16th, I had the opportunity to attend with the mayors of all the cities that are part of the Highline School District, the Graduate Highline kickoff, community kickoff that was held at the YMCA and SeaTac. It was a very well-run hour-long meeting to talk about what Graduate Highline is, and I will be talking more about it in the future. But essentially what Graduate Highline is all about is letting our students know that graduation matters. And we're looking at reaching out to them at the 9th grade level as they're transitioning into high school and oftentimes feel disconnected and not sure. They're the youngest in a group of young adults and trying to find their way, and college follows this, and they all know it, but how do they get there? And for some, college may not be the path. It may be something else. But we want to let them know that education matters. It will open those doors for you, whatever those doors are. And so I think we also, in our attempts to recognize success within our city, I think I have sent out a list of possible things that we could do to the council around sending a letter to the graduates from our schools within Des Moines. And there's a number of things that the businesses could do to let kids know that graduation is important. For communities who have done this, their graduation rates have gone up tremendously. Highline was able to report, I think, graduation rates this year, I think it's at 74%. And I know that seems low, but it's up tremendously. At one point, the graduation rate dipped as low as around 35, 39%, because a lot of kids just weren't seeing the value in getting a diploma. So I think it is our part, we need to do our part as city leaders in whatever capacity that we can that's within reason and to support this. So I was happy to be there. And I believe that concludes my remarks. I will turn this over to the administration report.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things tonight. Monthly financial report you will find in your packet. Danielle is away this evening, so certainly if you have questions, please email them to her, or we can take this up at another council meeting. I want to provide an update. Earlier this month, I attended an affordable housing forum in Auburn that was called by the Auburn Mayor, Mayor Bacchus. Involved King County Housing Authority, a number of other mayors, representatives from different cities, and the folks from Auburn. And it was the beginning of a discussion to see if there's some way that it might be considered to do some type of regional coalition on affordable housing, similar to what the East Side has, which is a regional coalition for housing that's sponsored by Bellevue. The FDs exist in the city of Bellevue. And then ARCH, which is what it's called, contracts with cities to provide services related to affordable housing. I worked with them in Sammamish. They're a very competent group of folks. They can help you with land use, zoning, densities, understanding affordable housing, understanding your needs, understanding costs, understanding appropriateness, understanding demand, all of that. So the next step in this was that they were going to have the people from ARCH come down and explain what they do and how they do it, and does it make sense to pursue a regional strategy. It was a pretty interesting concept, and we'll stay involved to learn more. We received a letter from Lake Haven Utility District. I need to let our city attorney respond.
Thank you. As you know, we negotiated and approved a franchise agreement with Lake Haven back in 2011. Because we just renegotiated with Highline, Southwest Suburban, and Midway and approved those franchise agreements, we sent a letter to Lake Haven and provided those agreements and asked them if they were willing or if they wanted to potentially renegotiate or use that agreement as a new agreement. They sent us a letter thanking us, but stating that they prefer the agreement that's currently in place. It's a 20-year agreement, so it's going to be in place till 2031. So at this point, they'll just proceed under that agreement. I did put a note in my Outlook calendar that we'll start negotiations in 2030. So we'll report back. I'll be here. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Then a follow-up to Councilmember Kaplan's description of the Flight Corridor Safety Program and the tree removal. We talked with the airport, and they intend to hold a public meeting, a community meeting, on October 10th at 6 p.m., and the venue to be determined, and where they will go into detail and respond to questions and so forth relative to that issue. I'm going to ask our city attorney now also to give a public records update.
I'll come down here for this one. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tim George with the City Attorney's Office. And I was asked to provide an update on the Public Records Act and city responses. There was some citizen comment last week that was questioning some of the procedures that we have. So I wanted to provide an update to the council, just to kind of let everyone know why we do what we do. Can you try to get that? I've just been using this. So here's the mandate. This is what state law says, that each government agency, which we are, shall make available for public inspection and copying all public records. So that's kind of the baseline, that we have to make public records available for inspection and copying, unless there's an exemption that applies. This is our overview of public records requests going back to 2013. So we generally have two types of requests. We have requests to the police department, and then we have requests about other branches of our government. So you'll see the majority of requests go to the police department. These are all routed through the city clerk first. And then generally the requests of the police department are for like an accident report, something fairly simple. This happened on such and such date, I would like the report. So those are pretty straightforward. The requests to other branches of government can be a little bit more difficult, especially when they involve emails. But that kind of gives you an idea that we're around 1,600 a year, which if you look at business days, it's about 6.5 requests per business day. So the cost of compliance, we looked at that around that 1,600 number and looked at staff time that it takes to respond to those. So we spend about $127,000 a year in staff time. Some people might ask, well, can't you collect fees for responding to public records requests? Well, that's 15 cents a page if we provide a paper copy. If we provide it in electronic, we can't charge for that. So you'll see there we collect a little bit under $1,500 a year. So if that was our business, if we were in the public records business, we would not be doing well. Then there's the cost of noncompliance. If we violate the act, if we fail to do something correctly, we can be sued, and there's daily penalties. So if you can see, I'm having a hard time seeing with the glare, but we had a number of lawsuits back in 2006, 2007, and 2009, where we paid out some substantial amounts, and that's general fund money. That's not covered by our insurer. And I want to point out, in those years, we were complying 99% of the time. Those three penalties represent 3 mistakes that were made. So it can get pretty expensive pretty quick. But the good thing to look at is for the last 7 years, we've had 0 penalties. And that is a result of a real change in policy, technology, and attitudes related to the Public Records Act. So I'll show you what we've done. The City Council updated the public records policy for the City of Des Moines in 2012, stated the mandate that we shall provide records for inspection and copying. We updated all the forms, so we have a form for just about everything, including requests for clarification if there's a request that we don't really quite understand. We updated our attitudes, which is really important. This was done through a lot of training. The fact that the Public Records Act is not going anywhere, it can be difficult and time-consuming and frustrating, but we have to comply. And so kind of once you get over that, that frustration about this is a lot of work, you just get the records and fulfill the request. So that's really an attitude change. We've increased access to records online. We have all of our ordinances, all of our resolutions, a lot of our contracts, all of our city council work online. So if someone requests an ordinance, instead of having to search through all of our ordinances and find that, we can just refer them to the website. And that's what it means when we make records available for inspection. If there's a way for the public to look at them without us having to go through everything, then we've made it available for inspection. So that helps, reduces staff time, and of course, you can make a public records request online. Another big thing that we did was this iCompass program, and this was installed in 2013. And this is really a way that we will never lose a public records request. So as soon as the city clerk gets a public records request, she enters it in there, and that'll have the requester's name, the date, the status. So if we ever look back and see a public records request hasn't been answered, then we need to figure out why not and get on it. So multiple people have access to this, and if you see your name on there, it means that we're working on your request. So that really helps. That's been a big help. And then also we record every records request that goes out. We keep a copy of that. So if there's ever a question about what we sent, you can just click on the side there and figure it out. So quick, just kind of the procedure. Public records requests are received. The city clerk logs them into iCompass. They're routed to whatever department might have responsive documents. We are required by law to respond within 5 days. That doesn't mean we have to provide the record within 5 days, but we have to let the requester know that we've received it and that we're reviewing it. We'd love to respond to everything within 5 days, but we can't. So then sometimes we'll provide an estimate of when we can get that response to them. Legal will review it if there's any potential exempt material, and that's something that we always do, and then the records will be provided. So again, we have to respond within 5 days. We have to make the records available, and if we do not include any record because it's exempt, we have to let the requester know exactly why and what is in that record, which is the basis for not allowing it. Here's an article. This kind of shows the change in attitude that the city's adopted. We had a public records request for every public record in the city, which is it's a very broad request, about as broad as you can get. And this request was made to all sorts, a bunch of different government agencies. A lot of agencies attempted to deny the request, and our response to this gentleman was, what day do you want to start? And he came in for a couple days, he looked at whatever he wanted to look at, and then he got bored and said he didn't want to look at anything anymore. So that's kind of our attitude, is we're open, and we're happy to let you look at what you want to. But a lot of what we do isn't too exciting. So these are kind of the general reasons why records won't be provided. If there's personal information in there, social security number, we'll redact that and then provide the record. On police reports, if there's victim or juvenile information, we'll also redact that but still provide the report. Health records, anything that's attorney-client privilege, we need to keep those privileges for lawsuits. And any active investigation that the police are currently working on prior to referral to the prosecutor. And here's just one example of why it can cost so much to respond to public records requests. We actually had a records request for everything related to the 2016 budget. And when we get a request like that for emails, we have the IT department scan system-wide. We don't ask individual employees for emails. We just run a system search so that we're able to pull everything. So we recovered 10,000 emails. The vast majority of them just related to anything that had the word budget in it. But we had about 20 that had health records, personal information, but it's 20 out of 10,000. So someone has to go through every single one of those emails and pull out the ones that we can't give out. And so it can be a time-consuming process. That's not something we do every day, but we get some requests that are very broad. And as far as moving forward, our plan is to continue to follow state law and city policy. We're really pushing to put as many records online as we can. We actually have all our permitting records online now. And someday we're hoping to get kind of more of an email system where emails are put on there unless they're marked as potentially being exempt. Any sort of technological options that we can explore to decrease the staff time is something we're always looking at. And then just working with requesters, if we can get them to narrow a request, that always helps as well. So that is where we're at, if there's any questions.
I have one, Tim. So based on what we heard last week, and then also based on what you just provided, we were well within the law of providing those requests, making them available for that person or persons to come in and review?
That's correct. We have the subdivision that has over 100 requests for records. So what we've done is compiled all of those because we've gotten so many requests for those records that we have them all in one place, and we absolutely invite them down anytime they would like and to review them anytime that we're open and we have someone to sit in there with them. But and they've taken advantage of that. So they're available for inspection.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Thanks, Tim. Several of us met with King County Library officials to discuss security at Woodmont Library. And I'd like to ask our police chief, Chief Delgado, if he would just come up and recount aspects of that meeting. Thank you, Chief. No, I should say come up slowly. Your back's hurting.
Good evening, council members, mayor, citizens and community. We met, I believe it was Monday, with Gary Wasden, the library director, King County Library Director, and Melissa Munn, who is a community conduct coordinator. The goal of the meeting was to talk about issues at the Woodmont Library specifically. Received a number of contacts from community members living down in the area, but also from my officers, specifically after a fight that two of my officers got involved in at the library, and both of them were assaulted. Time for change basically was the concept that we wanted to present, but we wanted to take a collaborative approach to it. We were happy to conclude that meeting with an agreement that we're going to go forth and review the trespassing ordinance to try and close the gap on making the library not only safer but more proactive in maintaining that safety. Excuse me. So that's going to include a SEPTED, so some of our staff will go in there and look at how they have the shelving, the tables, the computers set up to try to make changes that will create a safer environment, and also training for the staff on when it's okay to ask somebody to leave and when it's okay to call the police, but more specifically, what the expectations will be of staff, what the expectations will be of officers once the officers are called in there. Yes, ma'am.
Could you define SEPTED, please?
Crime prevention through environmental design. So basically what that is we want to make sure that the library is set up to afford the community the safest opportunity to be there, to discourage bad behavior, camping, whatever goes on in the library. We've been contacted by citizens who say there are people there sleeping bags, with headphones on, singing out loud, being disruptive. So the library's got the community's good at heart, and what they want to do is make sure that they're offering alternatives and a place for people to go, and they don't want to turn anybody down. Our concern is at some point when certain behaviors aren't addressed, they escalate. So I'm happy to say that the paperwork that they sent us, their policies, their practices, procedures, are all being redone. And we've got the open door right now, and thanks to Tim George, the city attorney, who's asking some critical questions also and is there at the table with us to make sure that the best interest of our communities at hand and right at the table there. So it's just a start of something that we think is going to be a good change. What I did find out is it's the only library that's on a highway like that in the whole system. So there are other problems in other libraries, but we have some unique things going on because the highway is actually on the highway. The library's on the highway. So the other thing we want to do, and I will be getting with Director Wasden in the future, is approaching King County Council, and when that time comes, I'll approach this council for support in advocating for services from Seattle to be brought down so that people aren't going to the library, but they can go to the true areas, the true place where they can get actual services and not just come to the library and camp in essence, which is what they're doing in some cases. So there's more coming, but I think there's a good team at the table that's looking to help them make some change. And I'm happy to say that we met with a willingness to establish a good partnership going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. The last item, I've been asked our city attorney to talk about nuisance abatement. So I'd like to frame this a little. I think at the council's retreat in 2014, the fall of 2014, city council identified nuisance abatement as a critical issue for the city. started working our way through them. We actually have gotten through the list to the point at which there's probably 2 left on the list, and one of them will not be standing after a short period of time. And that's been a process. And so now we find ourselves kind of faced again with the number of properties of concern. So what we've done is reinstituted the nuisance abatement process that we utilized last time in the hope that we can address the current situation. So I'd like to ask our city attorney to talk briefly about that.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll be providing updates once we recreate that list. This was something that happened just in the last couple weeks that was the result of kind of basically a public safety emergency that required us to take immediate action. There's this wooded area right here. This is 216th and the highway and the hotel here. And we had been receiving complaints that really kind of got to a fever pitch over the summer about criminal activity that was occurring in this property. It's a vacant property. It's just overgrown. And so we issued a notice of civil violation on September 7th to the property owner, which gave him 14 days to address the issue. We have never been able to contact this gentleman. He has an address in California, and we're not sure if he's even alive at this point. So on September 20th, this is what the property looked like, completely overgrown, and it's a large lot. There you can see the building next to it. And one of the big issues with this property was there's a number of trails. So individuals, when police would pull up to the property, they would run into the trails, and they could end up out in the backyards of 5 or 6 different properties going through these trails. So it became very difficult with enforcement. There was a number of encampments on the property. There was an office back there. And so on September 20th, our public works crews came up there based on the notice of violation that we had issued, and they went to work. And they started uncovering all sorts of stuff back there. But we had a bunch of guys out there, and I want to thank John Blackburn, who spearheaded this for the Public Works crew, and all the guys that were out there. It was a lot of work. There was a bed back there, a lot of garbage. This was actually a house there was a homicide in this house, and it's currently vacant. So if we went up there today and took some follow-up photos, that's what the lot looks like now. And see, this is the big thing. At this point, there's no place to hide. It's just a wide open lot. And you can see all the way through from each direction. The process that we used to do this was different than what we've used in other code enforcement actions. The house that we're working on that we'll be demolishing in the next couple weeks, that we went through the Superior Court process on that, which allows us to get a lien. The cost of that demolition is going to be fairly expensive, probably around $20,000. So to get Superior Court approval, then we can go back and we can put a lien on the property, and we're going to attempt to force the sale to recover our money. This was a lot less expensive, but we needed to do it quickly. So we weren't able to go to Superior Court because that can take over 9 months to get a warrant through Superior Court for a property abatement action. So we did this quickly. We did it through our municipal code process. It may be a little bit more difficult to recover any costs, but we're going to try. But ultimately, the issues have been resolved at this site momentarily. And I wanted to ask the chief, he had some comments regarding this property. I'll leave that up.
First of all, thanks, Tim, for your leadership in this. This is one that we were going to have some problems with. I'd been contacted by Chief Mulligan from CTAC. They were having problems, crimes occurring in their area related to this property. Major headache, and there was a number of times that we had crimes occurring on the corner of 216th and the highway, and the suspects would run, and they'd actually go into this lot and run through it in a diagonal way. At one point, there were multiple paths through there that you can take. When Lisa approached us, Chief Mulligan approached us, she wanted to have a discussion about how best to mitigate this. Recognizing the hoops we were going to go through, City Attorney George just said, let's just do it. So it took leadership to really force that. And then Dan Brewer and his crew went in there, and it was like an army going through there. And to see my officers excited about something, there was no holding back. They had all of them going through those things. Did a very good thing initially, went through there, found a young lady that was actually camping in there. We offered her some services. She refused all the services. She was asleep on a recliner that was stuck back there. But we were able to get her information and pass it on to some social service agencies. Hopefully she'll make the choice to go in and get the help. But didn't appear scared, didn't appear abused or anything else. She was just no rhyme or reason why she was back there. Again, the officers that were there, we had officers watching because of the danger level in that area. And the officers told me that no less than a dozen people from the community approached them and said, thank you very much. We had people going by and honking for the hour that I was there, just clapping, taking pictures, taking video. That area hasn't been opened up like that before. And it does rid that whole area there, because I didn't realize how thick it was, but how big it was till I walked that area after it was done. But found a number of things that had to be properly disposed of. Fortunately, I'm glad to say we didn't find any weapons. But what it does is just get the community coming out and talking to us about how good it feels now, how safe it feels now. But it also removed the problems that were there. And I think over the last month, people have called to say, what's going on in that lot? There seems to be a group of people that are going back and forth across the street and then hiding back into that lot. And that's not happening anymore. Immediate feedback from the SeaTac Police Department, very positive from the community. So a huge win, and it took city departments to collaborate on a public safety mission like that. And thanks, Tim, again for the leadership on that.
Great, thanks, Chief, and thanks everyone who involved with this. And that concludes my report.
Good question.
Yes.
I don't know if it's the chief or if it's our city attorney. I think this is fabulous, but it's vegetation. So how do we keep it clear?
I'm going to talk to Dan Brewer on Monday about, a lot of this was sticker bushes, so about spraying the lot, and hopefully that will at least keep those down for as long as possible. We're still attempting to find whoever owns this, and the code enforcement officers are working on that. So hopefully we can locate an owner.
Okay. I just think that it's important. We've made progress. We need to hang on to it. So whatever it takes. Okay. It's quite an administration report. Thank you. It takes us forward to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'm sorry. Well, I'll have. We could move to approve it if it were read into the record. So let me back up a little bit. My apologies. Will the city clerk please read the agenda?
Item 1, approval of minutes. Item 2, approval of vouchers. And item 3, Highline Place right-of-way dedication. And that concludes the consent agenda, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now, is there?
Second.
The motion was made by Councilmember Nutting, seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Is there any council member that wishes to remove an item?
No, but
Councilmember Kaplan.
I have a question about item 3. The right-of-way dedication, is this because, is this tied in with the conversations on Sound Transit on what that road eventually is going to look like, or was this independent of that?
This is independent. Right now, there's a 15-foot right-of-way that exists between Pacific Highway and Highline College, and we've always envisioned expanding that, and this is essentially the frontage improvement right-of-way take or need that will, but it will in part also help facilitate that future roadway that Sound Transit will build.
So there's no chance that we're going to have to come back and ask for more?
Absolutely not.
With that, did you want to pull it, or you want to keep it on the consent? Okay. Seeing no one has anything to pull, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay. This takes us forward to, it sounds interesting saying going forward to old business. Anyway, Pokemon Go status for reconsideration. Harbor Master Joe Dusenberry, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Joe Dusenberry, Harbor Master. You might remember at the September 8th meeting, the staff updated the council on the impacts of the Pokemon Go mobile gaming phenomenon and recommended that the city council reconsider its direction to contact the gaming company to have the Pokemon Go symbols deactivated in the Marina and Beach Park. At that time, the staff talked about the current situation, what was being done to engage the gamers and manage the crowds, and what the staff expected in the immediate future. Staff told the council that with the support of the police department, their efforts to enforce the 10 p.m. closure of the marina parking lots was largely effective, and that the problems associated with the crowds were decreasing in number and scope. During the last 2 weeks, the Pokemon crowds have continued to decline in number and duration, and the negative impacts have continued to decrease also. The staff is planning on removing the traffic reader boards at the end of the month, which have been extremely helpful, but we will keep the signage up for another 30 days. We will continue to ensure that the marina is a safe environment for all our visitors and to take enforcement actions to discourage inappropriate behavior. In addition, we have continued to talk to the trainers, as they like to call themselves, the people that play the games, and the staff has found out more about how the game is played and why the Des Moines Marina became a hot spot for this game. The staff found that the generation of the Pokemon figures is related to the overall amount of Wi-Fi signals in the immediate area, and since there are a lot of wireless devices in the marina, including several of our own, a lot of Pokemon figures, especially the rare ones, were being generated by the game. Social media also played a significant role because the trainers could spread word of their success immediately to large numbers of gamers. The staff believes that this is the beginning of the augmented reality games on mobile devices, and that we have to have contingency plans for similar events. We believe it is accurate to say that this was a fairly unique set of circumstances that made the Marina and Beach Park a popular place to play the game, and future games may be entirely different with little or no impact on the city. But we still need to have a contingency plan to manage the impacts of future games because they are essentially long-term special events without an organizer or permit. If something like this happens in the future, the Marina will need the ability to scale up, to shift some staff and add extra security personnel to maintain a presence after normal business hours, just like we would for any other special event, like the 4th of July, for instance. It's also our belief that paid parking will also help control future situations. At the last council meeting, the staff recommended that the council reconsider their decision to ask Niantic Incorporated to remove the game sites from the city. The staff is still recommending that course of action. And I'll answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Kaplan?
Move to direct staff to formally withdraw the request to opt out city property from the game Pokemon Go.
Motion made by Councilmember Kaplan, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington. Discussion. Councilmember Beck.
And we include the addendum that we direct staff to make a contingency plan should this become an issue in the future. And can that be a part of this motion?
You can make that motion to add it to it, or it could be taken as a friendly amendment. I would prefer if it were a separate motion.
Okay, I'll make a separate motion that we also make a contingency plan should this become an issue in the future.
Well, this motion's in front of us, so we'll have to take that up separately.
We can, yeah, excuse me. Have the first motion, do we have a second on the second motion? I know I have to take them in order, but I wanted to, we do have a second on that motion, so we have, no, we have that, but Councilmember Back made his motion. Do we have a second for the second motion that was put up?
Second.
Okay, motion made. Okay, so I'm going to take us back to our first motion. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. I'm going to take us back to the second motion requiring a contingency plan to be put together. Motion was made by Councilmember Back, seconded by Councilmember Bangs. Councilmember Kaplan has a discussion?
I guess the only question is that necessary? Not a plan, but to make a motion. It sounds like we've learned something from this and that staff is actually developing plans because whether it's Pokemon Go, whether it's something else, we're going to need to figure out how best to manage this going forward anyways.
It's strictly a budget question, really. We'll just need to make sure the funds are there. If this happens again, we need to, like I said, we'll need to bring on extra security, like we did with Puget, our contractor, Puget Sound Security. We should allow for some extra police presence because of the extra enforcement that was required. But again, we don't really know what the impact of paid parking is going to be, so it may, we expect it to reduce those impacts, but we'll still have some impacts.
I guess the question is, do you need us to formally say that we need a plan, or is staff working on a plan? For example, next spring when the weather improves, people are going to be back down at the marina. Are the signs going to be up at a certain date? Are the reader signs going to be up at a certain date? So I guess what I'm asking is, do we need to do a formal plan or not, or ask you to do a plan, or is a plan being developed to deal with the ongoing?
I think what, might be appropriate in this situation is for us to do the planning for a wide range of options, because we don't know what the next game is going to look like, but there are some factors, including paid parking, and report back to council in a relatively timely manner as to where we are with that process. I think that might be better than direction to do this, since we're doing it anyways.
Yeah, that was I didn't know you were doing it. You said you were suggesting that we do this, so I didn't know if a motion was needed. So I just want to be proactive and not reactive should this crop up, so we can be somewhat ready because we've learned from this one. So do I withdraw that motion?
You can withdraw the motion.
I'll withdraw that motion then.
Okay. Any other discussion? I would like to ask that we have that plan codified with I understand there's a lot of variables with paid parking and so forth, but come March of next year, I'd like to really understand that plan, understand potential budget impacts and other things associated with it, because as soon as the weather starts to get better, we run the risk of something like this happening again. We won't know what the impact is, but we need to be prepared. There's a lot of people involved.
It'll happen very quickly because we have to get it into this year's budget, which is due it basically at the end of the month.
Okay. Okay, so we've dealt with the issue, and I'll move on. I'll move forward. Okay, no other discussion. Okay. At this time, the council will go into executive session. The purpose of this executive session, is to discuss qualified applicants per RCW 42.30.1101G and labor negotiations under RCW 42.30.1404A. The executive session is expected to last 30 minutes. You are invited to stay. However, no formal action will be taken, and at the conclusion of the executive session.